loops in R. So a loop is a control flow statement that executes a statement or a group of statements many times, while an if-else statement will run sequentially a single instance. A loop can iterate multiple times. Let's look at the different types of loops and how they execute. The first is the for loop. So a for loop executes a code a specific number of times. So here we're assigning a variable with the name vec for vector, short for vector, and we're saying concatenate 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're creating a vector with 5 values in it. And we're saying for the values in the vector, print that value. So what actually emerges when we run this code? Well, for val and vector, so for val, the first value is 1, so it'll print 1. And then it iterates again, so that we'll go to the next step and print 2. And for the next val in the vector will be 3, and it will print 3. For the next value in the vector, it will print 4. And for the next value in the vector, it'll print 5. And now there's nothing else in the vector, so nothing else will print, and the loop ends. So with a while loop, the test expression, as long as the test expression remains true, the code inside that loop will keep on executing. In this case, let's assign the number 1 to the variable I. And we're saying, while I is less than 6, print I. And then let's iterate and say, let's add 1 to I each time. So when we run it the first time, while I is less than 6, yes, it verified it because 1 is less than 6, we'll print 1. And then we say 1 plus 1 equals 2. Now let's rerun everything. While 2 is less than 6, print 2. Now 2 plus 1 equals 3. Loop that back around. While 3 is less than 6, etc. Until we get to a point where we've added 5 plus 1, and while 6 is less than 6, that doesn't hold true, and that while loop will stop executing and break. The last type of loop we have is a repeat loop. And so this will iterate a code multiple times. Now there's no conditional check to exit the loop. So if you do not specify inside the body of the loop when to do a break, it will run indefinitely. Now what do I mean by that? Well, in this case, we say here, okay, let's assign the variable x integer 1. So x is equal to 1, and let's do a repeat loop. So we say print 1, 1 plus 1 equals 2. If 2 is equal to 6, break. Well, it's not. So now we go and repeat, and we print 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3. If 3 is equal to 6, break. It's not. So we continue to that until we get to 5 plus 1 is equal to 6. If 6 is equal to 6, then break. And that will stop the code. However, if we didn't have that break component in there, let's say we didn't even have the if component in there, we just had print x equals x plus 1. Now this code will run to infinity, right? It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the millions, billions, trillions, etc. You have to have a forced break in there for that loop to end. So loop control statements exit loop without executing all of the statements. Now there's 2 types of loop control statements that we can leverage in R. There are break statements and there are next statements. So the break statement we kind of went through, right? It's when present inside a loop, it stops the iteration from executing and forces the flow to exit the loop immediately. So we create a vector called num, which contains the values from 1 through 5. And for the values in num, if the value is equal to 3, break. Otherwise, print the value. So when we run this code, it will print 1, and then it will print 2. But then when we get to 3, if 3 is equal to 3, that breaks the loop. And now it's done running. Nothing else happens. So the output for this code is just 1, 2. But sometimes that's not effective for what you want to do. So a next statement can be more effective because a next statement will help in skipping the current iteration of a loop. So if we had the same premise, but instead of a break statement, we had a next statement. So we again had a vector, numbers 1 through 5, and for the values in that number, if the value is equal to 3, next, instead of break, and then print the value. Well, what happens here for our output is it prints 1, then it prints 2. And then if 3 is equal to 3, it says next, which means continue running this process, but it didn't want you to print 3. So the output is 1, 2, 4, 5, and then the code is ended.